I bought and tested every travel tripod that I can find under $100, and these are the 7 that I can recommend. Now, I will put some links in the description down below to these 7 tripods, but I will also put a list of the tripods that I don't recommend, because there's a few tripods that didn't make the cut, including one I thought that was gonna be great, and it literally broke straight out of the box. The first tripod we're gonna have a look at is the Benro Slim tripod, and this is probably the biggest surprise of all the tripods in this lineup. I am shocked that you can get a tripod of this quality for under $100. And I had somebody in a previous video recommend I try it out, and I'm certainly glad they did. It is a twist lock system, so you've got the 3 different twist locks on each leg, and this is the smoothest twist lock system of any of them in the group, and possibly one of the smoothest twist locks that I've ever used. And just those legs going in and out are just super, super smooth. Now, it is an all metal tripod, which would make you think it would be a little bit on the heavy side, but it's actually one of the lighter tripods in the lineup. In addition to that, you have an adjustable center column that can slide up and down to fine tune your height. You've got a bubble level to make sure that you've got the tripod level when it's on uneven ground. It is a smaller tripod overall, so probably the only disadvantage of this tripod is that the maximum height is lower than all the other ones. I think it is the lowest total height of all the tripods in this lineup, but I wouldn't say that it's super low. It also has a somewhat smaller ball head, and that will have an effect if you're using a big camera with a big lens. You are more likely to get sag with a smaller ball head than a bigger ball head, but I will say of these very small ball heads that I've ever used, this is probably one of the strongest. In fact, I was shocked at how strong it was. It also, of the lightweight and small collapsing tripods in this lineup, is the most stable. So you've got a high quality all metal tripod that is super stable, and it's certainly one that is one of the best in this lineup. The next tripod is the Ulanzi Ombra MT55 or 55MT. This is the cheapest tripod in the lineup with a retail price around $59 or $69. When some of the other tripods are on sale, they might be cheaper than this, but as far as retail prices go, this is the cheapest tripod that I ever recommend. I find that once you go below this, you generally get a junk tripod. This is not junk by any means. It is a flip lock system, which means it is faster to set up than a twist lock system. And I've been using this tripod both in the studio and on the road for probably the past 6 months. And even though it is an inexpensive tripod, it's held up extremely well. Now, you've got a center column for adjusting the height, and you have a little flip lever to adjust the height of that center column. Now, the one thing that you should know about this particular tripod is it does have a lot of plastic parts on it. This hasn't been a problem for me so far, but they aren't metal parts like some of the other tripods. This component is plastic, this is plastic, the flip locks is plastic, even the part that goes around the ball head, the clamp is plastic, the part that clamps on the actual tripod plate that goes on the camera is plastic. So what you're really sacrificing in this tripod is you're getting a lot of plastic, but you aren't getting a junk tripod by any means. I will also say that there's no problems with the stability of this tripod. Once you put your camera on and you take your picture or your video or your long exposure, nobody knows you're using a $50 tripod, not a $100 or $200 tripod. So this is probably my #1 budget offering of the group, although I do have one a little bit later that is often on sale, and if it is, then that's probably my #1 recommendation if you're on an extreme budget. The next tripod is by a company called Manbilly. It's the YS254C. Once again, I'll put links in the description down below. There's all kinds of crazy model numbers which are hard to remember. This is an all carbon fiber tripod, and I'm actually surprised that you can get a tripod like this for under $100. It has a twist lock system for the legs, so you've got 3 twist locks. I will say with the Manbilly tripods that are in this comparison, the twist locks aren't quite as smooth and aren't quite as good as some of the other ones in the lineup. They're probably the worst as far as usability goes. And all that means is you often have to twist them a little bit more to get them out, or crank them down a little bit harder to get them to stay in place. You have an adjustable center column, and the center column can be inverted like many of the other tripods in the lineup. You've got a 3-angle adjustable leg, so the legs can be adjusted to 3 different angles. But probably the standout feature of this tripod is not only the fact that it's a carbon fiber tripod that's under $100, but it actually has a monopod function. And if you're somebody that needs to use a monopod function for wildlife or sports or anything like that, even video, run and gun video, this leg comes off and then you screw that in to the ball head and you've got a monopod. Now, it is a short monopod, so it's more of a waist level thing, or if you're sort of on the ground doing wildlife. So it isn't a universal super high height monopod. Don't underestimate the value of a monopod when you're sort of doing running and gunning filmmaking, or you're doing wildlife photography. And it is the only tripod in this lineup that has that function. It has a sort of moderate sized ball head, which is reasonably strong, and it also has the ability to pan left and right. And if you're worried about the tripod being level, this thing has more bubble levels on it than any of the tripods in the lineup. You've got one here on the base and the legs. You've got one here, which is on the clamp for the tripod. And then you've actually got one here, which is on the side of the knob for the tripod clamp. So you've got a whole bunch of options to make sure that the tripod is level. The next tripod in the lineup is the K&F Concept A234A1. And I'm sure you're not gonna remember that. I'll put links in the description down below. This is an interesting tripod because it's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none, but it is actually an excellent, just very standard tripod. Now it's got a flip lock system, and the flip locks are great because they are very quick. They're quicker to set up and shut down. And it has an adjustable center column like many of the other ones. That center column can be inverted and put upside down, just like many of the other tripods. And it has a nice and good sized ball head. And compared to some of the other tripods in the lineup, this one has a little bit bigger ball head, which should give you a little bit more strength. It has a bubble level here on the tripod clamp. And this is an all metal tripod. It is the heaviest of the lineup. But depending on what you're doing, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because the lighter the tripod gets, the more likely it is going to be blowing over in the wind. And if you don't need it to be ultra light for hiking or when you're moving around a lot, actually the fact that this one is a little bit heavier can actually be an advantage. And it's gonna mean you're less likely to have to worry about hanging something from the hook on the base of the tripod to weigh it down. While there's no outstanding special feature about this tripod compared to the other tripods, that little bit of extra weight just makes it an excellent standard tripod when you're not gonna be moving around, but it still folds down small enough to fit in a water bottle holder, and it's still reasonably light. The next tripod is the Neewer LT07, and when this tripod's on sale, it is one of the cheapest in the lineup, and it's similar price to the Ulanzi, and it's a much nicer tripod than that Ulanzi. So I think if the prices are close, then I would definitely go with this tripod. And it actually surprises me how good this tripod is, and when it's on sale, how cheap it actually is. It has the nicest and smoothest flip locks in the bunch of all the ones we're reviewing here. I think it has the nicest and smoothest center column and strongest center column adjustment. It has the nicest and most stable ball head of any of these sort of cheaper options in the lineup. So there's a whole bunch of stuff to like about this tripod. The adjustable legs here, this is a metal part, where on the Ulanzi that is plastic. And on the Ulanzi, you've got like a little flip block for adjusting this, and this just has a knob for adjusting. So overall, this is just a better built tripod, and it has these little accessory ports on the side so you can mount like a GoPro for like a second behind the scenes camera, or you can put like a monitor or something, or a microphone, and it's got a couple of those as well. So I think when this tripod is on sale, it is definitely the #1 budget recommendation of the lot. It also has a very smooth panorama shooting function where you just loosen this knob and you can do your panorama, and then you can lock it in. So like overall, I think as far as hitting above the price point, when this tripod is on sale, it is definitely the best value. The next tripod is the Manbilly YZ285C. This is an all carbon fiber tripod, and of all the tripods in this lineup, I think it probably is the most stable, and that's based on the fact that it doesn't have a center column, it just has some really long extending legs. The only real disadvantage to this tripod is when folded down, it is a little bit bigger than the rest of the ones in the lineup. The twist lock system on Manbilly, just like the other Manbilly tripod, isn't quite as good as the other ones. It's a little bit fiddly and they kind of can stick a little bit, but for the price, it's not a deal breaker by any means. The other thing about this tripod, it is one of the cheaper tripods in the lineup. This one was closer to $60 than $100, and when you see that you get such a big, substantial and stable tripod for that price, you're getting a lot for your money. Now, there's no center column. It still has the hook, so you can hang a bag there, something like that, for extra stability. And it does have one of the bigger ball heads in the lineup, which is going to make it a lot more stable. It does have the panorama function where you can loosen this and you can shoot your panorama, and it does have one little bubble level that is on the tripod clamp. What I would say about this tripod is if you're into long exposure cityscape, long exposure landscape, long exposure seascape, where you're gonna get blurring motion or the lights or the blooming or astrophotography, this is an extremely stable top tripod because the legs go so wide. What I would say is if I was shooting with this for those purposes, I probably would just fold up the very bottom leg, because the farther you go down, the more narrow these legs get on any of these tripods, and just bringing in that last little one is going to give you that extra little bit of stability. So if I'm doing long exposure and there's a bit of wind or a bit of movement around or something like that, I'm probably going to bring it back like this. And now this is a rock solid tripod. You just got to make sure that you've locked all those legs in, which is a bit of a problem with these Manbillies because the lock system isn't quite as good as some of the other ones. But long exposure, big stable tripod, carbon fiber for around $60, it's hard to beat. The next tripod is an ultra portable K&F Concept tripod. Now, I had this recommended to me by some viewers in a previous video. I always looked at it and thought it looked a bit goofy and wasn't something I'd be interested in, but a number of people recommended it, and I decided that I really needed to try it for myself. Now, I was afraid because of the way it folds down that it wouldn't fit in the water bottle holder of a camera bag. But it does, so just be aware of that. It does look bigger, but if you stick it in this end first, I think it will fit in the water bottle holder of most camera bags. And it is the smallest and the lightest overall. Even though it's wider folded down, height-wise it's very small and it's very light. So it is the most portable of all of them in the lineup. Now, you've got a twist lock system and you've got 4 twist locks. So it does take a little bit longer to set up. And once we get to the center column, you'll see there's extra twist locks up there as well. So you do sacrifice a little bit in setup time because it does take a little bit longer, but you do get an extremely small, extremely light, compact setup overall. And now we see it's quite a short height, but we have another adjustment there. Now this brings me to the disadvantages of this tripod. First of all, I would not put a big heavy camera on it. This is a very light tripod, it's got very small, and by the time you get to the end of the legs on the bottom, at the very end of the legs, they are very thin. And because of that, this is not a super stable tripod, but it is a super portable tripod. So if you're using a small mirrorless camera and you're not worried about doing like long exposure type stuff, like maybe you're doing a little video shoot or you're just setting up for family photos or something like that, then the fact that this isn't the most stable tripod is not going to be a big deal as long as you have a somewhat small camera, small APS-C mirrorless camera, A7C, something like that. You just don't want a big camera with a big lens using this tripod. But for portability, this is the pick of the bunch. So I know that's a lot of information and a lot of tripods, so I'll summarize it like this. If you think you will use the monopod functionality of the Manbilly 245C, then that's my #1 recommendation. Don't discount the value of having a monopod and tripod all in one. If cost is your #1 consideration, then you've got the Ulanzi MT55, but I think the Neewer LT07 is a better tripod if it's on sale, or if it's only $10 or $15 more, I would definitely go for the Neewer. If you're concerned about the maximum build quality, then I would go for the Benro Slim. That thing is so well built and so nice to use. Honestly, you cannot believe that's a sub $100 tripod, and it is so well built, you're honestly gonna have to leave it in the will to someone. If you're after the lightest weight and most portable tripods, then your choice is between that Benro Slim and that ultra compact K&F Concept tripod. The Benro one is definitely heavier, but it's far more stable, and I think the build is better overall. But that K&F Concept one is so lightweight. So if you're really after super lightweight, then I would go with the K&F Concept. If speed is important to you, look at the flip lock system tripods, and I think there were 3 of them in the lineup. The flip locks are much quicker to set up and tear down than the twist locks, so just bear that in mind. I think the metal twist locks are probably going to last a bit longer. There is a chance that flip locks that are plastic that aren't adjustable could wear out over time, but at the price of these tripods, it's not something that I would worry about or I've ever even actually had happen to me. But flip locks are going to be a much quicker to set up and tear down. And if maximum stability is the most important thing to you for long exposure, for things like nightscapes, seascapes, astrophotography, then that Manbilly 285C is my #1 recommendation. I'll put links to everything in the description down below, and I hope this video was helpful. It took me ages to make, and I spent thousands of dollars on these tripods. Now, if you've got a budget to spend more than $100 on a tripod, I've just thrown a video on screen now. This is my review of the budget travel tripods, generally under $300. It's not an ultra budget setup like this, but it does give you an idea of what you're gonna get if you do spend a little bit more money.